Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Elsa Connect. This is our space. This is where we all get together and meet these amazing women week after week. And we've met so many people who we would not have met otherwise. This virtual space has given us this opportunity to meet women across the world, super achievers, amazing people. And today we have with us Asha, a wonderful person and a lovely children's author. And I will hand it over to Gulshan to take it forward.
Thank you, Tanya. So before I introduce Asha, I want to share a slice of my childhood with you. One of my biggest indulgences as a child, besides food, was books. I have read almost everything written by Enid Blyton. Her books took me on magical adventures with toys and pixies and made me savor lemonade and sandwiches and plan out midnight feasts in boarding schools. Without these books, a part of my childhood would be a barren landscape. Children's authors actually don't just write books. They inscribe very deeply on the minds and souls of children. Inscriptions about values, perspectives, pleasure, pain, life lessons. They fill up childhood with colors of imagination and possibilities. I am deeply indebted to children's authors for enriching my childhood. And I'm delighted to introduce Asha Nemia, a brilliant child's author, to you today. Asha has always been interested in writing, and while growing up, she was the editor of her school magazine and college newspaper. Her love for books led her to study literature in college, followed up with a certificate in teaching English. And she has been part of a trust which started a school. Through it all, she believes that books and stories are among the best ways for everyone, especially children, to explore new ideas and cultures. Her published books are for children across the age groups of 4 to 12 years. Humor, fantasy, mystery, and adventure are the strong elements in her work. She has won the Best in Indian Children's Writing Contemporary Award. So Asha, we are absolutely thrilled to have such an accomplished author with us today. I have two simple questions for you. First one, please tell us what were your dreams and aspirations when you graduated from LSR?
Thank you so much, Gulshan. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And thank you so much for sharing that lovely insight into your personal connection with books. I don't think I could have said it better, how children's books inscribe so many things on the souls and imagination of children. That was beautifully said. So before I answer your question, I also want to thank everyone on Team Elsa Connect. Thank you, especially Neelu, Tanya, Vandana, and Gulshan, who've invited me on this forum and have put the session together with so much of meticulous planning and so much heart. Thank you. And thank you all who've logged in today on Zoom and YouTube. I hope to enjoy the rest of this session with you. So Gulshan, to get back to your question, when I left LSR, what were my dreams and goals? When I graduated, I just had two things I was sure of. One is that I wanted to get working immediately. In retrospect, I cannot think what was the allure of getting to work so soon, but I wanted to get a job at once. And the other thing I was sure of is that I was going to use my skill with writing, my way with words, and that was what was going to get me a job. So here I was, a fresh graduate. I was carrying my portfolio of published work, which was, as you mentioned, just articles in school and college magazines. And I started applying for a job as a journalist and as a copywriter. And those days, actually, we had to go to the office. We were applying for a job and sit in a room and write a copy test to see whether your work was good enough. And I did get a job as a trainee copywriter in an ad agency. And that's what I did for 3 years. I really didn't ever think that I would end up becoming a children's author. So I did this for 3 years. And then came the first of what I would like to call my career U-turns. My career has been a lot of hairpin bends, a lot of U-turns. So I relocated to Tamil Nadu, and that too to a very small town in Tamil Nadu called Ranipet, because my entrepreneur husband had a factory there. So that was goodbye ad agency and life in Bombay, and I came and settled happily in Tamil Nadu. And from that point onwards, I think I dabbled in practically every occupation and every job that was open to a person who liked to write. So I continued to do copywriting freelance. I used to go into Chennai and work part-time. I became a freelance feature writer, contributing articles to the newspaper and to lifestyle magazines. I edited books. I copy edited books. And in one very bizarre thing, I even copy edited a cost accountancy textbook. And I wrote tourist guidebooks. I taught for a while. I became part of a trust which started a school. But for about 15 years, I also wrote stories for children. I was a regular contributor to the Hindu's Young World and to magazines like Chatterbox and Target. So I was a writer who also wrote for children. Then 15 years of doing this, one day I decided, why not I try and get a book published? And so I sent out manuscripts and my first book was published. And slowly from that point onwards, when my first book was published, the other things that I did just fell one by one off the wayside. I stopped doing one thing, then I stopped doing the other thing. And now I only write books for children.
Okay. So you've dabbled with a whole lot of stuff, copywriting, editing, teaching, and now you say you're a reading crusader and children's author. So which of these has been most important to you?
I think all the many things I've done, including copy editing, they've all shaped the kind of person I am. And that does seep into my writing. And I think especially my years living in small town India, they really given me so many new perspectives. But I see myself first and foremost as a children's author. And as you put it so beautifully, children's authors have the joy, they have the privilege, but they also have a huge responsibility because you have such an impact on a child's life. And you said it so well when you said what an impact Enid Blyton had on your life. And I think living in India, being a children's author is also very connected with reading and literacy. So of course, for years, I've loved to promote the joy of reading. And today I also see myself as a literacy partner because I really want to write the kind of books that makes reading joyful, not textbooks, not the kind of books a teacher would write, but the kind of very story-driven books which will get children very excited.
Good. So that's so wonderful. And I'll hand it over to you now to take us on the exciting session that you've planned for us today.
Thanks. Thank you, Gulshan. So Tanya, if we could have the slide share. So today's session, I'm going to share 3 of my passions with you. One is, of course, a passion for my own work. I'll give you all a small little glimpse into my books for children. And the second, I'm going to share my passion for reading. And the third, I want to show you how much fun writing can be and how easy it can be. So here it is, the first shot, the mandatory author with her book shot. And it's taken in one of the most favorite places of mine in all of Bangalore, a children's bookstore called Funky Rainbow. Tanya? Yeah. So I write books for children from ages 3 to 12. And this is the set of books for children 3 years upwards. So these books can't be read by the children themselves, but they can be read to them by the parents or adults in their life. And there in one corner of the screen, you'll see my very first published title, Granny's Sari. It's about a grandmother whose sari flies away one day and the adventures they have looking for it. There's Raja's mustache, about Raja Muchacho Singh, who's so proud of his curly, whirly, twirly mustache that he insists that everything in his kingdom must match the shape of his curly, whirly, twirly mustache, be it his throne or even the food he eats, and the things which happen when people insist on such things. Then there's Best Friends, about puppeteers. In this corner, you will see there's Amma, a book for Pratham, and I was talking about writing for literacy. So this is a book for very, very young readers. It's a story told in just 80 words, very simple words, which children can read on their own. Tanya? So I'm going to share a small peep into some of my books. And children's books would not be half as much fun if it wasn't for children's illustrators and the work they do, especially in books for the very young. So this is one of my more recent books, The Village with a Long Name. And it's about a village in India which has a very, very, very long name. In fact, the name of the village is Tayum Tata Tayum Taha Taka Dim Chim Shim Poo. And all the streets in that village also have very, very, very long names. Tanya? So, and can you see the illustrator Sudhita Mistry, what she's done with it? So if you wanted to send a letter to someone living in this village, you would need a really, really, really long envelope. And the illustrations add so much of humor and layers to the story. Yeah, next, Tanya. And this is another, what happens in the book is the village head, whom you can see there, a very feisty lady, she decides that she is going to have signboards up in the village. So when this experiment of having straight signboards fails, what she does is to have signboards which go round and round the pole, and that causes a completely new set of problems. Next, Tanya. So thanks to Children's Book Trust and to Pratham Books, many of my books have been translated into lots and lots of Indian languages, including Assamese and Chhattisgarhi, Urdu, Bengali, Tamil, and also many international languages like Bahasa and Farsi. And this has been very, very gratifying to me. So when I started writing for children, most of the books available in India were retellings of folk tales and retellings of mythology. So what I wanted to do is to completely break away from that. My books tend to be light-hearted, warm, funny, stories with a very strong storyline. Much has changed in children's writing, and I hope to show you some of the new kinds of books that have come up. And today in India, Indian children's books encompass issues, or very wide range of issues: migrants, bullying, consent. They deal with issues like constitutional rights, discrimination. But when I started writing, it was mainly folktales and mythology. So my books were a real attempt to break away from that. Next, Tanya. This is my latest book. This is for slightly older children, 5+ years. And this is about a king who is a very happy-go-lucky person, but he's very particular about one thing, that the chapatis he eats must be made perfectly. And then there's one day just an absolute emergency state in the palace because the chapati cook decides to quit his job and become a holy man. So the queen is left with no option but to hold a grand chapati contest where cooks from all over the country can come and audition for the job of the chief chapati cook. Next, Tanya. So I wanted to show you this lovely illustration by Chetan Sharma, where this is one of the cooks auditioning for the job of the chief chapati cook. And he has brought along his pet elephant as his helper. And this elephant can roll out 4 chapatis at a time because it's wearing a silk sock and it can just stamp 4 chapatis into shape at the same time. Tanya? So these are a set of books for older readers, 6+ years, children beginning to read on their own. And I think there are two series, the Adventures of Mooli series and the Trouble with Magic series, with one book forthcoming. And both these series are great fun. And I think if your child is bored at home, these are great books for them, because with the Mooli series, Tanya, with the Mooli series is about children who are just very bored one summer, and their father introduces them to a website called Way Outs, which stands for World's As Yet Original Untried Tricks and Stunts. So what do the children do for the rest of their vacation? They try to win a prize on this website by what else? Doing all kinds of original tricks and stunts. Next, Tanya. So this one, Behind the Lie, is a very special book to me. I responded to a call from Pratham Books asking me whether I would like to write a book which can enhance the emotional quotient of a child. So in discussion with Pratham Books, we decided to write a book on domestic violence. The thinking being that the coping skills that the child gets from reading a book like this will stand them in good stead in other abusive situations. The next slide. And I just wanted to share with you this beautiful illustration by Ainri Chakraborty. It just completely sets the stage for the domestic violence scene. The father has just left the house. There is the belt draped on the sofa. He's the pieces of glass. And this is how illustrations add they add a layer of emotion and sometimes fun to the children's story. Next, Tanya. And these are two standalone mysteries, Secret Hair Oil Formula and Silk Umbrella. These are again they're very relatable situations in the Indian context, because who else but an Indian would consider a secret hair oil formula to be something really precious? And then I have two sets of stories. They are collections of stories. And in these stories, I've explored lots of the themes which are very special to me, like inclusion, diversity, tolerance, and of course, there's ghost stories, mystery stories. They're really nice collections with a variety of stories. Yeah, Tanya? So that's me, and I've given you a peep of the garam stories that I've been sharing with children for over 20 years. So now we're going to get into the second part of my session, which is Reading is a Superpower, and we'll go off the slide share for a short time. So what I'm going to do in this part is I'm going to share with you some lockdown tips for getting children hooked onto books. We are at really a very strange time with this pandemic. Children are stuck at home, they can't meet friends, parents are working from home. There are such high levels of anxiety and stress. There's a lot of uncertainty, insecurity. So my suggestion to you all is to use this time to surrender to the magic of books. Just give yourself over and let your children and you fall in love with books all over again. And I'm going to share just 2 or 3 simple tips. The first tip is what I call SOAR, or SOAR, switch off and read. And one lovely way of doing this is for parents to schedule at least two time slots every week when everybody in the house switches off all their devices and reads. And what, as an adult, or you could be the grandparent, you could be the aunt, what you have to do is to tailor this session to your own personalities and to the personality of your family. Don't make it very regimented that, okay, like PT, we are going to meet at this time, and up to 3, 4, we are going to read. Instead, get the children involved. In all things to do with reading, make sure your children have agency, that they make choices, that they plan it. So you should start with not less than 2 sessions every week of maybe half an hour, where you can mix it up. Sometimes you all sit just quietly and read. Sometimes you read aloud to each other. Sometimes you may listen to an audible book. Sometimes you may decide that you're going to read a book which has a movie adaptation and you follow it up with a movie night. Make it fun, but switch off and read. That's a very important tip. The second thing is, digitally privileged people like us, we have become very comfortable with platforms like Zoom and Google. So my suggestion is use it for connecting over books. Very often children have not been able to meet their grandparents, they've not been able to meet their cousins. Make it a book party and you connect with family over books. Children have often not been able to even play with their friends. So if you can include, and really your parents, parents of your children's friends will thank you for it if you organize this, where you invite their friends onto the Zoom. And if you know their parents, invite them also, and make it a real party atmosphere. The simple way of doing it is to have a book party where you all decide we are going to share our favorite books. And when books are the main course, you must have a side of food. So decide that we're going to have our family's favorite food. You cook your favorite food. I cook my favorite food. Is it pakoras? Is it jalebis? Is it chaat? And make it a big party. If you want to take it one level, plan a little more, you can plan around a theme. You could decide that you're going to read books on music, for instance, if you're a music loving family. So we have Indian children's books. This is The Piano, and this is a beautiful book on Zakir Hussain and his tabla. There are so many books on music. Why not decide you're going to read books on music? You could decide to read books on food. And here's a tongue twister of a book, Kolukatte. And for the Bengalis, Macher Jol. And there's History Mystery Dal Biryani by the wonderful children's author who sadly we lost to COVID, Subhadra Sengupta. So books and food are a really good combination. You could think of any other combinations. You could say we're going to read about sport. One of the other things you can do is to play games, like have a book quiz, which the children decide that they are going to ask parents questions. You could have a book bingo to introduce a little competition into it. There are hundreds of sites on the internet where you can download these bingo sheets with book reading suggestions. And I have actually tweaked and made my own sheet. And it's just got these squares, and you give it out and say, okay, in 2 weeks, we'll see, or 4 weeks, we'll see how many of these books you've read. And I've got bingo squares like read a book in a series, read a book that makes you laugh, read a book with an adjective in the title, get your grandparent to read to you, and things like that. And you see how many you can read. So that's, now, the other thing you can do is in the run up to the pandemic and the last 2 years, especially, there's been a lot of upheaval in India. You could really, one of the lockdown reading tips I have is to talk to children about things which you think may be of concern to them. So of course, there is the pandemic, and there is this beautiful book for middle grade readers called When the World Went Dark. It actually deals with a child, but it's a humorous book with a mystery, a child who loses a grandparent to COVID. There was the migrant crisis, there was the farmers' agitation, there was the citizenship. And in India today, we have books on all of these issues. And I'll be happy to share some of the titles with you at the end of the session. And so this is a time when you could talk to them about these issues and reassure them also. Poetry in the park is another idea which a lot of bookstores use to generate interest in books and reading. The advantage of poetry is that it is short, There's a lot of feeling and emotion. There are different types of poems to suit everyone. They can be easily downloaded from the internet. But what I would really urge you all to do is to buy yourselves 2 or 3 books of poetry. And I have 2 suggestions. One is Jerry Pinto's Tickle Me, Don't Tickle Me, and Sampurna Chatterjee's The Byabba Chakka and Other Poems. These are lovely poems about children who have coconut oil in their hair, about gamchas, about rasgullas. And you can have a poetry evening where you read aloud to each other, get your children to recite to you. That's another lockdown reading tip. Now you might ask me, how, if we are all locked down, how do I get these books? And last year in 2020, the minute the severe restrictions were allowed and shops other than essentials were allowed to open, the first shops to open were bookstores and libraries. So I think there are 2 adults that you must befriend in your life if you want your children to love books. One is the librarian in a children's library, and even the smallest cities in India now, or even small towns, have special children's libraries. Because just think of it, you might have read maximum 100 or 150 children's books. The librarians and the owners of indie bookstores have read 5,000 books. So who better than these 2 people to recommend books for your children? And both libraries and indie bookstores, they were so responsive. They started, or you can order on WhatsApp, no contact deliveries, delivery by Dunzo. So please patronize libraries, befriend a librarian, please patronize indie bookstores, and they can be your friend and your children's friend on an exciting reading journey. So I hope all of you have got your paper and pen ready. So we'll go back to the slide share. The next slide, Tanya. So I believe that all of us can write. There is an author in each one of us, except there may not be a published author in each one of us, but there is definitely an author residing in each one of us. And I think writing is therapeutic, writing is great fun, and actually anybody can write. So there's just one tip I want to share with you before we get started on this exercise. Most of us adults, we are multitasking to a real to an amazing degree now. You know, we're talking on the phone, feeding our child breakfast, ordering something on Dunzo, answering an email, all at the same time. So our minds are like these 6-lane highways with traffic going fast down the. And this is not a good situation for creativity because we are keeping each lane very separate. The traffic can't collide. But the best way to unleash creativity is to take 2 absolutely disparate ideas and make them collide. And trust me, you will get a very good outcome from this. You can be very creative. So let's get to the first writing prompt. Okay, so say you take these 2 words, laddu and dupatta. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give you all just 45 seconds, at the end of which I'd like you to share, or okay, maybe let's make it 1 minute for the first prompt. I want you to write 1 to 3 sentences, not more than 3 sentences, using these 2 words in such a way that there's a story idea embedded in it. You just can't write a sentence saying, I had a dupatta and I ate laddus for lunch, because that doesn't really have a story idea. So try and use these 2 very disparate words, these 2 disparate ideas, and give me a story idea in 1 to 3 sentences. Your time starts now, 1 minute. Okay, I'm sorry. 1 minute is up. My phone was on silent. So pens down, and would anyone like to share what they've written?
I
can.
You can.
Madhulika, go ahead, Madhulika.
Yeah.
I had got a new dupatta and wore it for a puja one day. On reaching the venue, we were given laddus as prasad. No bags were given, and so I tied the 11 laddus in my dupatta and came home happily.
Wow, fabulous.
Wow, that is lovely. That's
yeah.
like a full story.
So I also have a kind of a
3
story.
sentences, you said?
Yeah, one. I think I've got one. I mean, I can share mine. Mine is the grandma wrapped the box of laddus she had made herself in her old dupatta and carried it over to our place for us to enjoy.
Great. Any
Yeah.
yes.
I'd like to share. Okay, is somebody else going?
I can't see.
Yeah.
Okay. One day, Laddu sat on the dupatta and he wanted to fly. He asked the dupatta to take him somewhere, like a carpet of Aladdin.
Nice. That's the beginning of a children's story.
Yeah, I'm a children's mummy, so and my daughter is a big fan of your sweaters, and even I'm a big fan. Like ever since she was 3, she's loved that book. I didn't know all the CBT book was yours. That's very nice.
That's nice.
Nice.
Yes, I think Sandhya and Gulshan are going to share as well.
Okay, yeah. One sec. She was presented a dupatta, which with its silver sparkles and iridescent orange of a motichur laddu, immediately took her back to the mornings of Saraswati Puja in her school. Oh school, oh childhood, oh India, she thought.
Very nice. Very nice. Gulshan?
So one of the boys in my class was troubling me and I had no weapon. There was nothing I could do. So I took out a laddu from my tiffin, tightened it up in the dupatta, made it into a ball and swirled the dupatta around to give him a tight whack.
Oh.
That's very good. So,
Sorry,
yeah,
my 10-year-old has just written and she's refusing to come on camera. She's too shy.
yeah, please read out.
But she wrote, a lady was walking home carrying a dupatta full of laddus. Suddenly she bumped into someone and all the laddus fell out.
Very nice.
Very nice.
So this is actually a game you can play with your children. Take two absolutely disparate words, pick them up, and then all of you can sit down and write. No, you can time yourselves, then you can take more time. But in all of this, fun should be the key. Because that's how it's, don't start saying, why couldn't you have done better? You should have, you didn't write the capitals in the right place. Keep it as fun and let it happen. Okay, so if you want to extend this a little bit, Tanya, can we have the next slide? Okay, so actually the next, the next prompt is spoon and mountain. But if you want to extend and make it a little more difficult, we'll go on to the next slide to see. Yeah. So you have to use spoon and mountain to either answer this question or to use this phrase, she came in through the bathroom window. So this could appear in any of the 3 sentences you write, either as the conclusion or it could be the beginning. It could be just the idea. So spoon, mountain, and she came in through the bathroom window. And again, we'll take just 1 minute. Okay, let's share. Does anyone have this?
Yeah.
Is a little, yes.
Yeah. She came in through the bathroom window with a spoon between her lips. There was a mountain of sugar on the dining table. She dived with her spoon into the mountain of sugar, and what a treat that was.
Very nice. Very nice. Any other shares?
Anybody who didn't share last time? Vandana, I think you wanted to share last time. No, this time. You have something?
It's good. Well, anyway, okay, I'll read out this thing. I quite like my first one, though, better than the second one.
Read out both.
Read out
Read
both,
out
yeah.
both? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So the first one, which is the laddu and dupatta. You're my sweetheart, my laddu. Now, please listen to what I'm asking you to do. Mama, can I please wrap your dupatta around me? I will pretend I'm a ghost and scare you away so you don't have to ask me whatever you want to.
Nice.
So the second one on Spoon and Mountain is she came in through the bathroom window. It felt so high, like climbing a mountain. How do I reach that honey so high and have a spoonful of it? I thought.
Very nice. So I think, Gulshan, we are running close to our time limit, but
Yes.
I'll just share the last slide with you, which is a prompt. It asks you to write a story ending with, and it gives you a concluding line. When help finally arrived, it came on a bicycle. So you ask your children, so you can just mix it up a little bit. The other things to have during lockdown reading are books of short stories. So you can start by reading out the first line of a story, ask them, how do you think this is going to proceed? And then read the actual story to them. You could read the last line of a story and say, how do you think the story actually, what did you think happened? And then you chat about it for a little, and then you can read what the author really wrote. So keep reading, keep writing, and we've come to the end of the session, and I'd really love for you to ask me any questions. I'm happy to share titles or more tips or anything else.
So any questions? And do we have any questions from YouTube? So Sandhya, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, there's a comment on YouTube which I think I'll read out. It says it's by Miriam Ruth. She's tried her hand at writing a story also. She says, once there was a boy called Laddu. His mother had named him so for obvious reasons. One day he came across a woman carrying a box of laddus in her dupatta. Start.
While we're waiting for questions, would you like me to show you some of the kinds of books which are available today for children?
I think that's a good idea. Tanya, Neelu.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Right.
Would you be able to send it to us, the list also?
Sure. What I can do is I can put it together and send it.
Yeah, sure.
But this is one book which, in my opinion, ticks all the boxes. It's called The YY Girl by none other than Mahashweta Devi.
Wow.
And it is about a little Shabar girl called Moina, and this is based on a true story. And she keeps asking why. Why is the sun like this? And she also asks very probing questions like, why should I eat the leftovers? Why should the landlord's boys have fun while I have to walk the goats? Why can't they do it themselves? It's a beautifully illustrated book. Here again is another book which ticks all the boxes, Kali and the Rat Snake by Whitaker. By Whitaker. It's about a little Irula boy. they come from the tribe of snake catchers. And he has to go to school, and how he feels because he doesn't want to tell everybody that my father is a snake catcher. He thinks it's very, the other children, their fathers are postmen, and then how he finally does something which makes him come to terms with. This is a recent book on the migrant crisis. It's based on a true story, Jamlo Walks, and it's based on the life of, it is a sad and poignant book, but it's been so beautifully illustrated and very beautifully told. So these are some. Then we have a lot of wonderful books in Indian languages also written originally. And this is one my grandson really loved. It's called Shaljam. And it is a retelling of the enormous turnip stories, but set in a Sikh community, no? And here you have it. It's like beautiful. And the thing about Indian children's books is that they are quite affordable for many people. You can get a book for as little as 50 rupees. And the most expensive books will probably be in the range of 400-500, which will be, like this beautiful book. It's about a girl living in insurgency-torn, curfew-ridden Kashmir, no? So this is really a beautiful book, and this costs about 450 rupees. And somebody was asking me about books for very young children. Here are two of my favorites. Nani's Walk in the Park, written and illustrated by Deepa Bhaisava. I mean, just look at the detailing that she's used. So, and I mean, there are lots of, this is another lovely book to buy during lockdown, Oluguti Toluguti. These are all traditional folk tales. These are traditional rhymes, and they will appear originally in Tamil or Marathi or whatever, with the transliteration and also a translation. So this is really a must-own kind of, you can really use this time to teach young children rhymes in their own language. Would love to have a recommended book list up to 0 to 5. Sure, I think I can put out a list. I do have 1 or 2 books here. This is a beautiful book by Tara Books. It's called An Indian Beach by Day and Night. And what is so exciting about it, this is a wordless book for very young babies. On one side, you have this lovely pictures of the beach by day and then the beach by night. And you can even make it into like a circle and have the baby just in that circle, it folds out into a, So we have, here's a beautiful wordless picture book for very young children, Amachi's Glasses, about a nice Kerala Amachi who can't find her glasses. And all the mistakes that she makes till she finally finds them. Would love to have a list for 10 to 12 years too. Sure, I have a couple over here. This brilliant book by Devika Rangachari, I would say for 12-year-olds who love history. And yeah, so I will give you more recommendations. I cannot find, here are some of the other books. For 10 to 12 years, we have these 2 books, which are really fabulous. There's Ninja Nani. I mean, really now Indian books have really come of age. You have such fantastic, fabulous books. Moin and the Monster Songster. We have wonderful books on the environment. If children are interested in the environment, we have books on people in India who've done wonderful work with the environment. 10 Indians who are fighting to save the planet. What is the name of the book about the insurgency? It is called Is It the Same for You? Is It the Same for You? Illustrated by Priya Sebastian and written by Neha Singh. Can you show us the environment book again? It is So You Want to Know About the Environment by Bijal Vacharajani. And there's a companion book to this, which is, yes, here I have it. A lovely book, 10 Indian Champions Who Are Fighting to Save the Planet by Bijal Vacharajani and Radha Rangarajan. So this is people who are fighting for the snow leopard, for the coral reefs. It like covers insects, animals, and so this is a lovely book. So I think we don't have any more.
I have a very non-book related question right now.
Sure.
That lady in the illustration on the magic book, is that you, Asha? It looks like you.
Which magic book?
The magic series, the ones that you have.
Actually, quite a few people have said the brief I gave the illustrator was I wanted that lady to look like Farah Khan, the choreographer. So that was the picture I had in mind. But maybe I look a bit like Farah Khan because a lot of people have told me that that lady looks like me. Yeah, Trouble with Magic. That's about Aunt Malu, and she's a herbal medicine expert. And I also fancy myself as a herbal medicine expert.
Very
And
happy.
the adventure she and her niece have when they're trying to invent some herbal products. Yeah, that's why it's called Trouble with Magic. The magic is to do with herbal medicines.
Great. Thank you.
So is there anything we have? Any more questions?
There
Shall
is
I-
one more question. I was
Yes.
wondering if you yourself know of authors who help kids. Yes, I actually meant to suggest this in my lockdown reading tips. There are several authors who are conducting reading programs now. And it's really quite wonderful because if you sign up for the program, of course, these are paid programs, they will send you a whole set of books, 4 books or 5 books, and then you read with other children. And there are authors who do creative writing programs. I can't offhand think of anybody who's doing one right now, but I know the author Varsha Station does reading programs, and Nandini Nair does creative writing programs. There's Soumya Rajendran who does creative writing programs. So if you look up these 3 names, you can find out about reading and writing programs. Yes.
Can you suggest names? I think, yeah, so she'll have to look up. Okay. Right. So do
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was saying maybe with the list of books that you recommend, Asha, you could also recommend these authors that we can look up if they have a program.
Sure, I'll do that.
All right, thank you.
So I now want to invite Vandana to talk to us about the next session. So let's hear from her and then we'll get back with Asha.
Thanks, Gulshan. Asha, you set us off on this creative thing. Now these words are coming from all over. And I must say that I love the title of your books. They're absolutely just so catchy and so endearing. I feel like being a kid again. I think I want to read up with my little grandbubs soon. And thank you for saying that you'd suggest what titles for a 3-year-old. So thank you. I want to invite all of you for our next Elsa Connect session, which is going to be on the 22nd of May. Enough time to plan. We instituted an Elsa Cares Award in 2019, which is for Bangalore-based. Elsa Bangalore started it for our Elsas here who work in the space of the NGO space. So either set up their own NGOs or volunteer with an NGO. And this is not only just a cash award, but a major part of it is also which engages Elsas in Bangalore to volunteer and work together with that particular NGO. And it is absolutely my privilege to announce that for the 2 awardees we had this year, we are going to have Kamla Venkateswaran, who will be joining us on 22nd of May. And she has been the founder, director, member, hands-on for the last 3 decades with Vishwas. And Vishwas is a counseling center, okay? And they do not charge anything. They have over 3 decades. They're open to anybody from any walk of life to actually just walk into their counseling center and support them through their volunteer-based NGO. So please don't miss it. Kamala is here with us today, actually. Thank you, Kamala, for being here today. And we'd love to hear about your journey on the 22nd of May. Back to you, Gulshan.
Thank you, Vandana. That sounds like a really, really exciting one. If we don't have any more questions for Asha, I really want to say a couple of things. One is, Asha, I really wish that I was born in this era. There are so many Indian children's authors. Honestly, 45 years of, I'm 45 now, maybe 40 years earlier, 30 years earlier, there wasn't this much of choice. Enid Blyton, I think, literally ruled the world of children's books, even in India. Probably there might have been some Indian authors, I don't recollect too many. So I really wish I was born in this time and with having authors like you. And the other thing I wish is what fun it would be to have you either as a mother or a grandmother. Imagine, somebody like me being born there, a book, a house full of books. That would be so amazing. And I loved the passion and commitment to the cause of reading and the cause of making children read. Your energy came through, and there's so much work that you've done around it. There's so much expertise you have around it. It was just lovely to hear all of that. And there's so many comments here saying thank you for the session. Everybody's loved it. And I am hoping that ladies with younger children are taking back a lot of information today, useful in terms of not just the names and authors of books, but I thought the exercises she spoke about, one is the writing exercise and the activities around how do you go about creating a culture of reading in the house, the different kinds of games. That's amazing. I'd love to be able to do that. My kids are grown up. I don't know whether they have reading habits or not, but mine are grown up now. So Asha, thank you so much. Absolutely delighted and thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Gulshan. And I forgot to mention one thing. A lot of adults nowadays, they tell me, we're just not able to read. We keep reading the first 2-3 pages of a book and rereading it because I think there's so much of anxiety. So may I suggest that all of you also become children again and just read children's books with your children. And thanks so much, Gulshan, and everyone at Team Elsa Connect, and all of you who logged in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.